Go.
I'm Chloe.
I'm Serena. Oh, that's your mic. Sorry, I have one.
I'm Theo.
And we're here today to speak with you about a very important issue in the field of agriculture. The world's natural resources are under strain. The oceans are overfished. Climate change is causing water shortages in many areas.
Excellent.
And 1 out of every 9 people worldwide faces chronic hunger. These problems are only going to intensify with population growth. The UN predicts that by 2050, there will be 9.6 billion people in the world. Serena. In order to feed that many people, food production will have to nearly double. And we're here today. Current agricultural methods alone are not enough to meet this demand. One of the challenges is to provide enough protein for all of those people. Henning Steinfeld, chief of the FAO's Livestock Information and Policy Branch, has stated that livestock are one of the most significant contributors to today's most serious environmental problems.
Let's take a look at what it takes to produce just 1 pound of beef. It takes just under 3,000 gallons of water, 25 pounds of feed, and 1,345 square feet of land, just for 1 pound of beef. In the US, 80% of fresh water is used for agriculture, and 75% of all grain produced is used to be fed to livestock.
Worldwide, livestock account for about 1/5 of greenhouse gas emissions.
As we were researching these problems, we found this quote from Kofi Annan. "We cannot continue the way we are producing and consuming meat. There are alternative sources of protein. For example, raising insects as an animal protein source. Insects have a very good conversion rate from feed to meat. Eating insects is good for the environment and balanced diets." Could this be it? Raising insects as a human food source? The data says yes.
Let's take a look at what it takes to produce 1 pound of crickets. It only takes 1 gallon of water, 2 pounds of feed, and 134 square feet of land.
Crickets also have a very high nutritional value. Dried cricket powder is about 67% protein. They are also very high in iron, calcium, and healthy fats. And the greenhouse gas emissions, negligible. When we decided that we were going to pursue this concept of insects as a human food source, we went looking for an expert who could help us. Now, surprise, surprise, we didn't find any such expert in the Twin Cities. There's not that many people doing edible insects. Shocking, I know. But we did find an expert in sustainable agriculture. Zach Robinson, Executive Director of Spark Y Youth Action Labs. Most of his work is in solar power and aquaponics, but when he heard about our project and the potential insects could have, he was fascinated, and he agreed to help us on this journey. We did some more research, and we began to ask, why aren't insects commonly consumed in developed nations? And we began to suspect that it was a cultural bias. One of the first things we chose to do was design a survey to determine if that was the case, and if so, what is the extent of that bias. There were 10 questions, and we distributed it over social media. In your packet, you'll find the survey, the complete survey. We distributed it over social media. We were actually able to reach many people in many different countries.
We've chosen a few questions to share with you today. The first question is, would you ever be willing to eat any type of insect? Now, the good news is, most people said yes. The bad news is, most of the people said yes, said they'd only be willing to eat insects to avoid starvation. second question here is,
which was the fourth question on the survey.
It was the fourth question on the survey. It was further down the survey. Would you be more comfortable eating insects if they weren't identifiable as insects? And most people said yes. Take away the legs and the crunch factor, and you get more people to say yes. And we also asked, which of the arguments out of low cost, taste, health, and environmental concerns would you find most convincing? And health was the dominant reason that most people chose, followed by environmental concerns. Oddly, this survey seems to show that people find taste to be the least convincing argument, but when we are trying to get people to eat food with insects in it face to face, taste is usually the most convincing to them.
So you can see we have a fourth graph on here, and that's about what people feel about insects in animal feed. And the majority either supported or didn't have an opinion. We'll get to insects as an animal feed in a few minutes. What we concluded from our survey is that there's really one major obstacle to widespread consumption of insects in developed nations. And that is this. A funny face. That's it. So, armed with this knowledge, we set out to combat the funny face. We got a couple insect cookbooks, and we started cooking with insects. And what we discovered is that insects are actually delicious. You can make all kinds of great recipes with them. Now, the other thing our survey indicated is that people were more comfortable eating insects that they couldn't see. So we also got some of this. This is finely milled cricket powder. So it's crickets that are ground into a very fine powder. You can put this into food. It's barely noticeable. It just lends a pleasant, nutty taste, actually. No textural difference. We made a variety of foods, including veggie burgers, pizza dough, scones, cookies, dumplings, and much more. We consulted culinary experts, including a chef in Europe who trained in Copenhagen, right next to the top-rated restaurant in the world, Noma. And his opinion on edible insects was that gourmet restaurants will have to lead the way. It's in much the way they've done with local produce and organic food to make insects acceptable and even trendy. And he also advised that we start cooking with insects and that we share our food with people and show people this is delicious and it's safe and it's nutritious. So that's what we did. We set out to share food with people, and we shared with various groups we are associated with, and what we found is, of course, that they were more comfortable when they couldn't see the insect. But when they couldn't see the insect, most people were willing to try it. And once one person in the group tried it and said how good it was, most people they'd come up and start eating it. And once they started eating it, they kept coming back.
Once we started growing food, making food, we started thinking about growing our own. Now, we're bug geeks. We have had prior experience raising insects, and it's not like you can go down to the store and buy a bag of mealworms for your dinner. So we started raising insects in a basement space. We have over 30 small containers like this,
as well as several larger
tanks
of mealworms and crickets.
We built this box as a small countertop storage facility for also easy handling. After we were raising insects for a while, we started wondering, are there other substitutes for the common substrate used, which is wheat bran? We consulted with Tom Felch.
Troy Felch,
the owner of Trans-Mississippi Biological Supply. We talked to him about raising, and after a while we asked him, how flexible are mealworms? He recommended we set up an experiment and try several different substrates. While we were setting up our experiment, we consulted with Destiny Zeeble, the lab director at Spark Y. She helped us keep conditions consistent throughout all our samples and reflect the results equally.
We sifted out very small mealworms and introduced them to 5 experimental substrates. There was wheat bran, which was our control group, Niger, oatmeal, hay chaff, and millet. And what we found is we let them grow for 6 weeks in there, and weekly observations were made throughout that time. The mealworms in the bran, the hay chaff, and the oatmeal were healthy and vigorous throughout. When we weighed them at the end, we weighed the mealworms and determined an average mass for each box of one mealworm. The mealworms in the bran had the highest. The hay chaff and oatmeal also grew to a fairly respectable size and appeared healthy. In the Niger and the millet, the mealworms were much smaller, they were much less active, and they had a higher mortality rate. From this experiment, we have concluded that mealworms are flexible. However, they do perform better in some substrates than others.
This also made us think, are insects as a human food source the only thing we can do with them? We did more research and we found studies being done with insects as an animal feed. The most promising of these insects is the black soldier fly. The black soldier fly larva is expert at reducing manure, food waste, and feed waste. We looked at the swine farm operation, which is in China, and the feces are brought to the larva rearing area, where they use the manure as substrate.
And feed source.
As the larvae grew, when they become full size, they crawl out of the substrate to pupate. The full-grown larvae, which have removed themselves from the manure, are very easy to collect, and then they can be then sold for biofuel processing or fed directly back to the swine.
And they reduce the manure, the mass of the manure, by 45 to 50%, and they also help to really cut many of the more harmful, potentially environmentally harmful components of the manure.
Clemson University is running a small-scale operation with the black soldier fly. They turned 200,000 pounds of cafeteria waste into 572 gallons of biofuel,
15 minutes.
16.7 tons of compost, 4 to 5 tons of agricultural feed. They also demonstrate their procedure here, which is collecting the food waste from the cafeteria, pulverizing the waste, feeding it to the larva, and then they harvest the larva, which can be, the oil from the larva can be separated into a very efficient biofuel, which it produces the same energy as methane fermentation.
We shared our project with a dairy feed consultant, Keith Sather, the president of KS Dairy Consulting, and he was pretty good-natured and talking, as we talked about the using insects as a human food source, but he didn't really think the idea would catch on in the US. But where he got interested was with the black soldier fly and the possibility of using insects as a potential feed. And when he saw the amino acid profile of the black soldier fly, even he started to wonder, why aren't we already using insects? Coupled with the manure management possibilities, he is anxiously looking forward to seeing this idea take hold in the U.S.?
So what's next for the edible insect industry moving forward? Well, we've been in contact with Dr. Aaron T. Dosey. He owns All Things Bugs. He's one of the industry leaders. He has a grant for $450,000 from the USDA, and I realized there's a typo on my slide, and it says $45,000. I mean, zero, not that important, right? I'm sure you would think it was pretty important if he got shorted, but so anyway, I apologize for that. So he has $450,000 from the USDA to provide the research needed for the GRAS, generally recognized as safe certification. With that, insect products will be able to be sold in stores. It really opens up a lot of new potentials. He also has a grant from the Gates Foundation to do research needed for it to be certified as safe for use in therapeutic foods for emergency relief. And when we spoke to him, he really believed there were two things that the insect industry needs to move forward, to become large scale, and that's they need the legislative oversight. So the generally recognized as safe certification, and then starting to regulate it like any other industry is regulated, as well as greater automation of the farming process. So once those two things are in place, it becomes much easier to produce insects on a large scale. And with that, the costs of production will come down, the opportunity for profit increases. It helps move the industry forward. So for us moving forward, we believe that one of the most important things for the edible insect industry at this stage is outreach, and really reaching out to people and saying this is safe, it is nutritious, it is environmentally friendly, you can eat this, it's not harmful, it won't hurt you, and you may make a funny face, but then you'll taste it and you'll realize it's good. So we have started a blog where we put up recipes and other information about edible insects. We have a Facebook page. We're really working on social media, and then just groups we're associated with. We've shared with a number of people, and most of the time, once you start telling them about this, they warm up to it, and they start out like this, but pretty soon they're open to it. So we're working on reaching out. We have our blog, we have our Facebook page. Now we would like to invite you to join in the revolution and try some products made with insect powder. We have cookies, which we have made, protein bars from Exo, and chirps, which are cricket chips. So if you would like to try, you can come up, or we can bring samples around, whatever you want.
What a cookie.
Absolutely.
This is in these.
So it's just a chocolate chip cookie, and then there's cricket flour added. And the concept of the cookie is we're obviously not trying to save the world by distributing chocolate chip cookies, but they're a gateway. It's, I ate an insect and I didn't die. And it tasted good. So,
Team, you have about 30 seconds, and we're going to end your presentation.
okay.
So you don't go over time.
We're ready to wrap it up and take questions. Does anyone else want?
Your mic, sorry. I'll try one.
I'll start. I got a question for you. Okay, we're starting a question for you. Can I take some chips to the back of the room?
Absolutely. Yep.
I didn't even have to take a swig of coffee to wash that down. So,
you talked about people are okay with that as long as they don't know that it's in their food. And with the whole campaign of right to know, food labeling, people want to know what they're eating. How do you think that? What are your
we're
feelings?
not actually trying to hide it. If I said the word hide, what I mean is, it's not like, oh my God, I'm biting into a whole bug. So which that bugs some people. The pun,
Take
but
away the crunch and the legs. That's
that was sort of like the biggest things we found when we talked to people is that thank you, yeah. When they saw insects, it's like, I can't do it. I know it may be good for the environment, I know it may be healthy, but I can't put that in my mouth. It's a big step for a lot of people to overcome. So these are, it's clearly marked that these have cricket in them. And it's not so much that people don't know that they're eating insects, it's just they're not looking at an insect, they're looking at a chip. It's very familiar to them.
Two questions. The cookie was great. Mark Hammerlake, Minnesota Corn Growers. The cookie was great. It certainly wasn't any worse than one made from DDGs, which I've had as well. Two questions. I have a question about your online survey. You said you got questions, or you got responses back from around the around the world, basically. And did you have enough responses? First of all, how big was your response rate?
We got around 300 people to respond.
Okay.
And they are we have 9 different countries represented. So
okay.
we sent it out.
Did you notice any difference between the U.S.? I think the U.S. is a little bit more hesitant than some of the European countries. In the Netherlands, the movement is a little further along. Okay.
So.
The U.S. just has more fun space.
We're a little more hesitant on the. Don't know if I want to eat that.
My second question has to do with the research that you did in the mealworm substrates.
Yes.
Were you able to find any other research that's being done on that? Were you validating anything, or is this original to you?
This is original. We weren't able to find. We did research after experiment. They grow well. Many people have had luck in oatmeal bran. They recommend grain products like that. We have seen a couple of people raising them in HF and having good luck. That seems to work well. Nobody has. We don't know. We didn't find anything about anyone else throwing them into Niger, which was sort of amounted to mealworm torture at the end of the day. They were not very happy in there. So we're currently working on repeating our experiment, and so far we're seeing the same things, where the ones in the bran and HF and oatmeal are happy and growing and squiggling around, and the ones in the Niger are kind of like.
And most of the ones in the Niger are just dead.
Yeah. So and then in the millet, they reached a point where it's like they were doing okay, and then they reached a point where they kind of stalled out, stopped growing, and were just slowed down just in there. So
I have another question too. Did you guys do any analysis on cost of production? Per pound, per hundredweight, and how that kind of computes out?
There's not a ton of information available on that just yet. We've been in contact with Aaron Dosey, and he's really working to try and get production costs down, because it is still fairly high, and the product is fairly pricey as well. So it's still somewhat challenging to find information on it, but it is.
But there isn't enough automation.
They're still having to do too many things by hand.
They're feeding
and watering by hand.
They're not. The industry has not progressed enough. It's just in these past couple of years, people have realized that this is an option on the table.
I have a couple questions. The first one is, so you said that the products are expensive too.
Yeah.
Do you have a price for like?
Yeah,
products that
this
you have
is
out there?
wholesale. This is $35 a pound. So,
It's pretty expensive
and
right
these,
now, but as we said, there's just not enough automation for anything else.
Aaron Dosey believes that with just by increasing the scale, they can cut production, by increasing the scale and automation, they can cut production costs in half right there. And then as they continue to refine that, it will drop more. And as the production cost comes down, the retail price comes down.
My second question is, so you showed us this room full of bugs and things that you
Yep.
have that you're doing your research on. What are your plans for that? Are you going to continue?
We're
some
continuing.
research?
We are continuing,
Make
and
your own cricket meal,
we're
or-
really excited about this. I am continuing to work to promote this. I really believe that this is a great thing, and it's something that can really, we're not trying to replace all of the more conventional agriculture. It's about sort of it meshes in with it. It's something that you add. It's kind of, where they say take shorter showers. Well, you can save a lot more water by just swapping out one serving of beef with a serving of crickets, and you're saving many showers worth of water right there.
Maybe following up on that point, yeah, do you see this? I see this as something maybe as because of the costs initially anyways, as being sort of a niche market thing.
It is.
Like someone that, would go to Kowalski's.
Yep,
Whole Foods or
absolutely,
something
absolutely.
like that. I mean, what's the potential, do you think, of getting beyond that niche
It
market?
really, that's part of what because it very much, it's sort of, and you see it, it's kind of what our chef's point was, is he thinks it starts out as a niche market and health food, fancy restaurants, and a lot of stuff, it can kind of progress beyond that. It's sort of like sushi. It took a while for it to go mainstream because raw fish, but people eventually warmed up with it. The funny face. So, and you see health as being one of the most important reasons. So obviously, our Whole Foods shoppers are probably going to be the first ones to get on the bandwagon, but it has the potential to, once it's out there and once they're doing it, it could become a trend. It could really take off. And if it tastes good, it's going to stick around.